As an educator, and as an educator in a diverse setting, which is important to me, I want to be in that setting because I want to be an ally to all. So specific to our African American students, it's important that they know that they have someone here to support them, who will build a relationship with them, who will do what they can to be there for them. So I have to be able to speak to that and make sure that they understand that they're accepted, they're important, and their history is just as important or more important than any in our country. So going back to your first question, I'll tie the two together. It impacts me here today, standing in this school, because I know it's important to many, many students and their families. And they have that rich history, which makes it important to me because I want to be their ally. I can't empathize with being an African American student at a high school. I can't because I'm not, right? I grew up north. I'm white male, so it's hard for me to fully empathize. But I can listen, I can be a supporter, and I can make sure that those students understand how important that rich history is to them, is equally as important to me as their building leader. So that's how it's impacted me.
In many ways, the sports I play, the way I dress, what I do for fun. I have a black family in North Carolina. I go visit them every year and they teach me about my history and my culture.
Black culture is basically everywhere nowadays. It influences the music I listen to, the clothes I wear, the food I eat, the people I hang out with. It's just all around us and influences me and my life every single day.
It impacted my life by helping me understand like my ancestors' history and like what they went through and things that they did.
Most personally, and this was just from a couple years ago, I learned about an individual during Black History Month. His name is Dr. Vivian Thomas, and he is a black man who was an American heart surgeon. And in the 1940s, he actually discovered and developed a heart procedure to perform on newborns who are born with a heart defect. And it turns out that it's the same exact procedure that I had done when I was a month old and had to have open heart surgery. So it's really impacted me because I never knew about him before. And there's so many Americans who have done great things for the common good. And this month is an opportunity, and it should be an opportunity every day, and it can be an opportunity every day to learn about and recognize those who have impacted our lives. And Dr. Thomas's innovative brilliance has impacted my life. It saved my life.
It's impacted me in a lot of ways because I like Black history. I like learning about like my heritage and like to learn about what's going on that happened before me and my ancestors.
You know, I got this question and I was thinking about it, and I can't honestly think of a way that Black history has not impacted my life. The things that African Americans have contributed to our society is phenomenal. The problem is we just don't know all of them. It needs to be a shared thought and idea. I mean, straight up, if we didn't have African Americans in this country, we would not have peanut butter, and I would not have made it through my childhood.
It impacted me because some of my teammates come from different backgrounds and cultures, and I like playing with them, and if not for Black history, I wouldn't be able to play with them.
Black history has impacted my life because there are so many people who have basically paved the way and broken barriers that have allowed me to be where I am today and allowed so many of us to be, you know, where we are and in the positions that we're in now.
That some of them don't really get recognized or anything like that. So it's important to know who they are.
It's important because even though we weren't there, it still affects us till this day. And it's important to learn about our past and what mistakes we might have made and learn from them.
I would say just learning different things, different people that came before me, you know, that made it possible for me to be here, like, you know, Jackie Robinson, you know, in sports and others to me. And just learning different things, a part of the history and stuff like that, I would say.
I think it's just important to know about history overall because it really gives you an insight about the past and people's past experiences. And I think it's important to learn about people who made history because you can be inspired to make change.
I think it's important to learn about different types of people who made history because we can always look back on it and learn from their mistakes and success, and we can grow in the future.
I feel like it's important just to learn lessons that people may create and just to learn from that stuff, because you don't want to say if someone does something bad and you don't want to repeat that mistake and you just want to do that by learning about history. And it's also important because they may bring some type of influence upon you, whether it be music, culture, food, whatever. So, yeah.
I think it's important because they worked really hard and they don't get recognized enough for it. And yeah, they just worked really hard and yeah.
Okay, because we're all part of this current reality, so therefore everybody's part of making history on a daily basis. And if you don't include everybody, you're not being truthful. You're excluding people. You generally end up telling the story of the rich and the powerful and excluding everybody else. So you don't get a real feel for the fabric of our society or a real understanding of history. Everything that goes into making us who we are and our nation what it is.
So to me, to be an ally is to say, I see you and I care about you. So I think about we all have our people at home, right? But we also have people at school, adults and classmates. We're all connected. Now, there's a reason why we don't live on our own little islands. We're responsible for one another. And that's part of being an ally and also part of understanding what other people go through and understanding what we as individuals go through. So part of that community, we think about the special gifts that each one of us has. And there's a reason why we have those gifts, and it is to lift one another up. Whatever the struggle, the challenge, the obstacle is. So all of that's very important in being a member of a community.
For me, I say, because the way that you do things and the way that you do it to others, it can change them, and then it could also, them doing it, it can change others because they could keep going on and doing it for other people.
If someone is going through a rough time, then being there for them can completely change their outlook on things. It can turn a situation from disastrous to better.
Well, I feel like it's important to be an ally because of the fact that some people are given way more opportunities or advantages than other people. So it's really important to make sure everyone has that equal opportunity to help, rise them up,
It's important to be an ally for others who may struggle or need support because it empowers everyone involved. We need voices from all groups.
It's important to be an ally for people because you don't know what they're going through or anything and don't know what they may struggle with, and helping them can help them be better as a person.
The people that struggle and need support are obviously the most in need people, and that's the majority of people in the world. It helps you and that person that you're helping especially the people that are most in need, like the people living in poverty.
Because not everybody has a family to go to at home or people that can support them, and if they have people around them, at their school, that can help them feel better, it helps a lot.
Often, as an ally, you may be in a position of power or privilege that will allow you to elevate others or help them move forward. For example, the U.S. is an ally to several countries that don't have the money and manpower that we do. So maybe a more relatable example is, suppose you're popular or well-respected at your school and you notice that somebody is getting bullied or picked on and you stand up for them. So not only did you intervene in a situation, in a bad situation that they were having, but others are seeing your actions and are more inclined to act in the same way. So before you know it, you're building empathy and spreading compassion. So, you're using your power that you have in a good way.
That's a very good question. There's plenty. Like I could go someone like my dad, my mom, but I think the biggest Black American that's probably has history upon myself is probably like my grandma. You know, she passed away a couple years ago, and she's been like a real influence upon me, whether it be, you know, do them dishes, do that homework, clean up, and then also just, she taught me just how to be myself and being comfortable within myself, so yeah.
Jimmy Butler inspires me because he came up from nothing, from being homeless, and to where he got to today.
Someone from Black history that has inspired me and has had a huge impact on my life is Stuart Scott. I remember being a young kid and watching SportsCenter and seeing how he just brought his swagger to the camera, and just his hip-hop background and his culture, just seeing him break the mold, that you can be yourself, you can be authentic and still be in front of America, you know, every single day. Like, that's what I wanted to be as a kid. So, you know, I finished high school and, you know, I ended up going to TV school with goals of being on camera, being a sports journalist, and for a while, you know, that was my path, and that was all because of Stuart Scott, and he just taught me at a young age that you can be yourself, do what you love, and still have fun.
I really thank Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays Hayes for their accomplishments in baseball. They've changed the game forever, and I played every day, and they influenced me to become better and be the player that I want to be.
There are so many inspirational Black Americans, but you know who really inspires me today is RuPaul, because RuPaul has more confidence than anybody I've ever known. I'd like to know him, because he'd be so much fun to go to lunch with too. But he just inspires confidence and creativity and joy, and that's an amazing thing in a person, amazing quality.
The Harlem Hellfighters from World War I inspire me because back then they fought for a country that didn't welcome them, so they still stood up for what they thought was right.
Barack Obama, and it is a obvious kind of answer, but being the first Black president, I think that's a very important milestone in American history and world history.
Rosa Parks, because she stood up for her own community and didn't let any other race stop her.
Michael Jordan, because he inspires me to do good at basketball and try my hardest.
Someone from recent history that inspires me is Angie Thomas. She wrote the book The Hate U Give. And it's a book that focuses on the life of a teenager, an African-American teenager who struggles with her identity. And I think it's a very astonishing book that should be included in our curriculum. Ruby Bridges, because she was the first Black girl to go into an all-white school.
God, there's so many, but there's one guy in particular that nobody knows about, or very few people know about, a guy named A. Philip Randolph. A. Philip Randolph, he started organizing in the 1920s in New York. He organized the first predominantly Black trade union, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, because back then trains were the major mode of transportation, so he organized these workers who worked for the railroad, predominantly Black workers. They were porters who worked on where the rich folks would have a car, and every car came with a servant, you know, and they were, it's an incredible story because they were very poorly treated. Every car came, they were the sleeping car porters. They were all called George. Didn't matter what your name was, everybody called you, your name was George. There's a documentary about this called like 10,000 Black Men Named George. But so because of their poor treatment, he and others, but predominantly him, organized a union so they could get fair wages, fair treatment. It became a very good job. But he didn't stop there. You know, as you know, we moved away from train transportation, that became, you know, less significant. But during the 1940s, he put pressure on FDR, Franklin Roosevelt, to as we were gearing up for World War II, to desegregate the industries, because every factory in America was producing for the war effort, yet Black men were still excluded, Black women were still excluded. And they were going to march on Washington, 1941, And FDR was embarrassed. Like, how can we be fighting against, fascism in Europe and have 100,000 African American citizens protesting their poor treatment here in America? It's embarrassing. And he negotiated with A. Philip Randolph. He says, look, if you call off the march, what can I give you, to call off the march? And so he passed the Fair Employment Practices Commission to integrate all those armed forces, and overnight opened up, 1 million jobs to African Americans in these industries, good paying union jobs.
I think the person that inspires me most is Rosa Parks, because she was very strong-willed and stood up for what she believed in and didn't care what anyone else thought.
I would say Harriet Tubman, because she escaped to freedom but really cares about people, so she went back and helped other people escape as well.
I think Martin Luther King Jr. inspires me today because he wanted everybody to be equal, and he fought for that in a peaceful way, so he didn't try to, actually fight people. He used powerful words, and that, kind of made change now, in a way.
Rosa Parks, because she stood up for what was right.
So many people who have paved the way and broken barriers without which I would not be standing here today. But I think that education is the foundation for most things. So some of the trailblazers in education come to mind for me, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, Ruby Bridges, because I feel like a lot of people would not have been able to accomplish the things that they have without an appropriate education.